But let's move into the next topic, and that is Lonzo Ball. Touched on him a little bit in the Anthony Davis topic that went for an hour long. So shout out to everybody who listened to that on iTunes or checked it out on YouTube. Also, don't forget to check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/mostvaluablepod. But let's jump into the Lonzo part of this. We mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about the Lakers deals that Lonzo Ball does not want to go to New Orleans. He doesn't think that he would be a good fit with Drew Holiday. The report coming that I'm reading, at least, is from the Sun-Times. Lonzo Ball prefers trade to Chicago or the Knicks. Obviously, that might change a little bit because that was before the Dennis Smith Jr. trade came out. But we're going to talk as two Chicago fans and impartial fan.
A Denver fan, let's be honest.
No, a non-fan of any NBA team, but just of the NBA. We'll talk about what Lonzo Ball could mean for Chicago. So, Ricky, I'll go to you first. Mm-hmm. You've been a Lonzo Ball liker before.
Yes.
You almost bought the shoes. Let's jump into how Lonzo would fit in Chicago. Should the Chicago Bulls trade for Lonzo Ball?
Oh, absolutely. Like this is something to me where like when I've looked at Bulls fans on Twitter and some of like the big Twitter handles that like tweet about the Bulls, the one thing I see constantly this season is complaining about Chris Dunn. More so the tweet that I see more so is like, Chris, what are you doing? You had 2 great plays and then 2 boneheaded plays. What are you doing out there? And for me, when I heard Lonzo say New York or Chicago, I was like, absolutely, get this done. Get him to Chicago. I love Chris Dunn. It's not like I hate Chris Dunn, but then we can maybe move Chris Dunn for something. And I personally, unless you think otherwise, Dave, I think Lonzo might be able to help this team more so than Chris Dunn right now and might fit our core better than Chris Dunn.
Why do you think his fit is better than Chris Dunn?
Because for me, and when I look at Lonzo, he's a guy that, yes, you can say like kind of ball dominant because he's a point guard, but it doesn't have to be. And he's a guy where I'm looking more so on what he brings defensively next to Zach. And especially, let's say we don't land Zion. We do not land Zion. If we add a guy like Cam Reddish, where in the comment section, people are boasting about his defensive ability. Let's say we land in RJ Barrett and we fix our 3 problem. That means next year I've got Lonzo at the 1, Zach at the 2, either Cam or RJ, barring we don't get a Zion pick at the 3, Markkanen at the 4, and then Wendell at the 5. I'll take that for the future.
Here's the thing is I don't disagree with him. So unless you're on the other side of the fence, I'm curious to what you're thinking.
Lonzo Ball, not ball dominant whatsoever. He is a great full court player, terrible half court. Like he's awful in the half court running offense, whereas Chris Dunn's actually really good running the half court offense. I think he's a better passer with the ball. Like he's a better floor general. Like Lonzo Ball makes excellent passes and quick decisions, but he often does not set up an offense and run sets. He's very much push the pace and forcing the team.
LaVine would be the guy. Like, I know what you're saying, like Chris Dunn is better in the half court.
Yeah.
LaVine is then our true point guard, and Lonzo is just at the point guard position.
Here's my idea of what this is I agree with you that clearly Chris Dunn's better in the half court, and Lonzo's a freak in the full court. I mean, some of the passes that he's able to throw and just create are insane in the full court. However, what you're looking at between Lonzo and Chris Dunn is pretty much a 4-year difference because Chris Dunn's about to turn 25 on March 18th. Lonzo's going to turn 22 in October 27th. So that's one huge gap right there. Is yes, Chris Dunn's a better half-court player. That doesn't mean Lonzo can't learn at all. And yes, he's a quick decision maker and he's a great passer. And at some point, I think that can turn into half-court presence. And he's already a better defender than Chris Dunn.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he?
Lonzo Ball last year was elite and could have been all-team.
You're wrong.
Defensive
You're
second team.
You're completely wrong in that.
There are so many fucking stats that put him like lined up next to DeJounte Murray when it comes to defensive stats last year. He was an incredible defender last year. And it's not the same this year. And there's obviously his lowlights, like everyone has. But I think that you look at his 6'6" ability, his long wingspan, and his athleticism, I think he has at least the potential, I think you can agree with that, to become a better defender than Chris Dunn. Where do you see him struggling defensively?
No, I'm just saying I think Chris Dunn is an underrated defender. I think that Chris Dunn, as of today, is a better defender, and I think that Chris Dunn is probably, I think he probably has a good chance of maintaining that. Lonzo Ball, I could see him as he can continue to develop his offensive game. I think that'll kind of trade off a little bit. I mean, I still think he'll be a great two-way player at some point in his career. I'm not doubting Lonzo Ball at all, and I like Lonzo Ball better. I just think that people disrespect the hell out of Chris Dunn, and it gets a little annoying.
Well, what were we disrespecting about Chris Dunn? Because I haven't seen, outside of the first little stretch of his run in Chicago, which was last year before he fell on his face at Golden State, or in Chicago against Golden State, and broke his face.
Yep.
I haven't seen much outside of that. So what are we missing on Chris Dunn then?
He's a defensive presence to help cover up for Zach LaVine. Basically the same thing. Like, if you took the two players next to each other, the only difference is that Lonzo shoots volume threes. He makes some of them. Mm-hmm. Chris Dunn doesn't shoot volume threes, but at a better rate. I mean, that's literally it as far as the difference right now. So if your offense is going to be, if your offense is going to be, you need the spacing, which I don't know that the Bulls do. Between Zach LaVine, one of the three wings at the top of the draft, and Lauri Markkanen, you got your spacing set. So having someone who can slash to the rim, who can cause contact.
But that's where I think Lonzo hasn't been able to develop, because they needed more spacing so Ingram can work on the inside. LeBron could work on the inside and drive. Even Kuzma, in some ways, was a little bit of a guy who works mid-range and outside, but he is a guy that
5 threes a game.
Who?
Lonzo.
I know he is, but that's because he's trying to work within this offense.
Yeah.
I think
that was his offense in college, though, too. Like, that's
not
his
true.
natural position.
He was very much a guy who was he shot threes. I'm not saying he didn't. I think he probably shot around four a game. But also, you saw so many times in Lonzo's career at UCLA where he would drive into the paint. He would take it to the cup. He was a phenomenal dunker in college, and he was also a great job of driving in, having the defense suffocate, and then dishing it back out. I think that's potential still in him, and you especially look at this year and the player types he's playing with. Ingram needs to work mid-range. That's been his largest part of the game.
100%.
Same with LeBron James. And Kuzma is a guy that mainly works isolated, and that means just clearing out and working beyond the arc. Lonzo, I don't think, has had the ability to grow within a half-court offense this year. I think if you give him the opportunity, especially with the age difference between the two, I think that Lonzo Ball is clearly, I think you agree that he has more potential than Chris Dunn.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that he's a better fit with this Chicago team because you already talked about the spacing. LaVine's a decent shooter. Markkanen's an elite shooter. Wendell Carter hasn't been great in the NBA, but we saw in college that he had the potential to be good. And then obviously if Ricky's talking about an RJ Barrett or especially a Cam Reddish, where we're projecting it to be a decent three-point shooter in his career, you have four guys right there that can space the floor. Lonzo working, driving, and then cutting out and dishing out. That would be massive for the Bulls, and especially that 6'6" frame. What is his game then, you think?
He's a quick touch passer. He rotates the ball around the offense from the outside.
But I look back. He wasn't that at UCLA. He was not that player at UCLA. He wasn't that guy because he wouldn't be. If he was that guy, he wouldn't be second overall. He wouldn't be averaging 8 assists a game.
And the thing I'm going to interject here and just throw this into your guys' conversation because I just like hearing you guys go back and forth here. You know what would fix this? If the Bulls had an identity. We don't have an identity right now. If Boylan's there, then, I mean, Dave's right. Like, it's going to be more half court. But let me just throw this out and let you guys go back and forth. I know this is speculation. I know these are rumors. Let's say the rumors of Luke Walton's hot seat being a little bit hotter in LA. What if the Bulls, let's say Walton got fired, the Bulls said, hey, you know what? He's a guy that wanted to emulate what the Warriors are doing, space the floor out. Lonzo could fit that. What if get Lonzo if they hired a coach like Luke Walton who has, and you can put any coach that spread the floor, kind of a not half court, we're going to run in transition kind of an offense. Then does that change thing? It's like, okay, now I can see it working if we have the right coach for him.
I think the right coach for Lonzo Ball, at least in Chicago, would be Fred Hoiberg, weirdly enough. Because if they were running that fast-paced offense, I mean, they would be. That's where I think he would thrive the most.
Thinking the same thing.
I mean, Dave, what do you think about this? At least I agree that obviously everyone agrees that they don't have an identity right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it just comes down to, is Lonzo Ball a first-round pick worth upgrade from Chris Dunn? Would you be willing to give up a first-round pick to have the minor upgrade from Chris Dunn to Lonzo Ball? At the moment, I say minor upgrade. We don't know in the future. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like we've said, Lonzo Ball's got the potential. He's 6'6". He's huge. He's got a great wingspan. He's got a three-point shot that looks like he got hit in the arms as a child over and over until he forgot how to shoot. But like the frame-wise, they're still Chris Dunn 6'4", 6'5", Lonzo being 6'6", so it's not a huge difference. I just think that, is he worth giving up a first-round pick to get as an upgrade?
And that's the thing. Like this year's first.
Hell no. I'll just say hell no.
And
if I'm getting a point guard, I'm taking John Morant.
Right, and that could be and that could also be, and
Would
I know that
John Morant or Lonzo Ball. John Morant.
I know
10
that.
times out of 10.
I know that Gar Forman was one of the many scouts that was at the Eastern Illinois game scouting Thanks, but Gar. I mean, and that's the interesting thing. We don't know where we're gonna fall, because if we get the number one pick, and I know this is all like where we go. Number one pick, well, Ja's out of the question. Zion. And at that point, you don't want to be looking back on, man, God, I wish we traded for that Lonzo kid. Can you imagine this team now? Whereas if we don't get Zion and we get maybe the second pick, then it's like, oh man, why did we trade for Lonzo?
Let's just make it clear. Mm-hmm. There's no way in hell that they'd be trading the 2019 first round pick.
No, if it was protected heavily. If
that's what the Pelicans or Lakers were asking for, the Bulls would say no.
Click.
Because you do not want to risk it, even with the protections. I don't care. Condoms have protections, right? They fail like 1% of the time. All right? I know that's not possible in the NBA.
Top 10 protection?
If you have the ability to get the number one pick, you're not trading for him. You're not trading the ability to possibly get a Zion or a John Morant. You all right, Dave? Are you able to handle this conversation?
No.
Big boy?
You ever use a condom before?
No.
No.
This took a weird turn. Let's get back to Lonzo Ball. I don't think LeVar ever used one. That would have saved us a lot of trouble. Anyways, I think that if we're just talking about Chris Dunn versus Lonzo Ball, to me it's clear that I would make that move. I think that he is someone that you could develop. And you look at what he did in college. You look, especially what he did around the rim. He was a fantastic finisher at the rim, about like 75% at the rim. He didn't have the greatest success of going after it. He took more threes than he did 2-point attempts. He took 4 2-point attempts per game compared to 5 3-point attempts per game in college. But a big thing that he was able to do in college was hit 41% of his threes. But when you're playing around scorers and you have to be the number one scorer like he wasn't at UCLA, like Zach LaVine, like Lauri Markkanen, that might make your shots a little bit easier. His shot is still broken as fuck, and I'm not going to defend it, but maybe he'll have a little bit more success. I would feel that if we're talking about Lonzo Ball versus Chris Dunn, I think that he would be a much better fit. However, it then just gets into the value and the question of should they trade for him. So should they, in theory, yes. But what would you be willing to give up for Lonzo Ball, Dave? Because obviously the 2019 first-round pick is off the board. You were saying, though, previously that you think that if they added Lonzo Ball and were even able to keep Chris Dunn, that you think this is a team that could even make some noise next year.
I think they would not be a top 5 team in the draft. I think that this team has that sneaky upside because we haven't seen the core play together for more than a handful of games. Mm-hmm. And it is, I literally think it's a handful of games where we had Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, Lowry, and Wendell Carter out there together. I can't say that it went over 10 games. That's ridiculous for guys. And even if you remove Wendell from that, you go to the year before, and it was still a fairly low number because of all the overlapping injuries. So we haven't seen the best out of these Bulls yet, and we're watching them with a terrible coach. So next year, we're all hoping, praying, sacrificing small, goats or whatever it is to try to get a head coach in there who is, born, somewhere after the invention of the basketball to guide us in the right direction. If that happens, this team will look similar to, we're not going to be as good as like Sacramento or the Nets are, but we're going to be in that, 8 to 12 range, very likely.
Well, what happens is that you're still playing in the Eastern Conference, and you look at Charlotte, they're possibly losing Kemba Walker. That's going to take them down huge substantial margin. But then again, you still have to look at what this team could possibly be. And if they do add these young players, it doesn't mean anything if they still lack that identity. Yep. They still have these gray blobs in the front office. They have this thumb, as Jake likes to lovingly call him, and Jim Boylan as their head coach. So if they still have those players, those young players do not mean shit because they don't want to play for Jim Boylan. They don't want to give effort because they hate this guy. Yeah. Not because they're lazy, because you're an asshole. So if the asshole's still there, you're not going to get the best out of these players, even if they're all extremely talented. Zach LaVine's extremely talented. Go look at his first 15, 20 games of the season. Holy shit, was he putting on a show
25,
every single night.
5.
Look at Lauri Markkanen. Markkanen this year's growing from a great rookie year, and some people are kind of upset at his development, but also, again, look at his coach. Look at the changing of his teammates around him. It's a different team. It's a different situation that he came into after being injured. Wendell Carter Jr., injured, banged up, hasn't been able to play consistently because Jim Boylan doesn't want to give him minutes, doesn't think he's working hard enough. And again, I don't think that's on Wendell Carter Jr. Wendell Carter seemed like a great kid with great character coming into this year.
Absolutely.
You're playing for an asshole. You don't want to play for an asshole. So I think a huge thing would be...
They also have an absolute... I was going to say fuck ton. I'll just say fuck ton of money going in free agency. Mm-hmm. If they can find someone who wants to play here, they can throw a lot of money around this year. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
The thing with that would be, in my opinion, is would you want to add a veteran to this team?
I'm just saying it's an option out there.
But does that fit the core, in your opinion?
I mean, Zach LaVine is already, 23?
I think so.
So...
I'll check.
Meh. I think if you've got the money, now's the time to spend it.
He's 23, 24 in March.
Yeah, he's on his second contract. So you've got the money to spend it now before you have to pay for Lauri Markkanen on his, after his rookie contract's up, Chris Dunn, his rookie contract. So I think that now is the time to spend because you're going to get a top 5 pick in this draft, God willing, top 1, top 2. And then you move forward and you can go ahead and free agency, sign a big contract for somebody, try to lock them up long term. And then this team is set for the next 3 years. You're basically just on the right track in my mind. Yes, absolutely do it.
What I want you to do is look for a name that you think they should sign. Because obviously I don't think they're going to get Kevin Durant or anything like that, but I think you should look for a player that you think. But clarify me this. You're in the camp of, no, you should not trade for Lonzo Ball because you can go out and sign somebody.
I think the cost of Lonzo Ball is probably not going to be worth the upgrade from what Chris Dunn gives to this team unless they really want to change identities to something that they had in Fred Hoiberg in a quick pace, constantly pushing from the outside perimeter.
Ricky, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, do you think they should trade for Lonzo Ball?
Yes.
Especially because of the price that could be willing, and especially with Dave's bringing up. What do you think about what Dave said, and especially should they trade for him?
I would say yes. The only thing is, to me, what is that price going to be? Like I mentioned in the Anthony Davis one, the trade that I put out there, but I just came up with another one based off of just a random one I saw on Twitter, and I had to fix it because it didn't work mathematically, of course. But the skeleton was Lakers get Anthony Davis and Etuan Moore. The Pelicans get Kuzma, B.I., Chris Dunn. The Lakers first this year and a Bulls second next year. I would probably make that a Bulls first. The Pelicans would want a first over a second for 2020. Bulls get Lonzo Ball. That math didn't work, so I fixed it. Here's what it is. You tell me what you think. Bulls get KCP, expiring contract, and Lonzo Ball. Lakers get the AD, Etuan Moore. The Pelicans take on Felicia's contract. It's for 2 more years.
Yeah,
they can eat it because they get B.I., Kuzma, Zubac, Chris Dunn, and Bobby Portis on top of the 2 picks that they would get.
They're getting what picks again?
They would get the one that was in the tweet was Lakers first this year and Bulls second next year. I think they would want the Bulls first 2020. I don't think they would want a Bulls second. But
so the Bulls side would be
the Bulls
Chris Dunn, Bobby Portis, and a first.
We would get Felicia's contract off the books, which he's got $3 million at 8.7. Chris Dunn and Bobby Portis, and we would take on KCP, which would expire at the end of the year, And I don't know if he's a Bulls fan or not.
That is extremely Bulls heavy because you give them so much. You just freed up $8 million in cap in the Felicio deal, which is the worst, probably one of the worst deals in the league.
And adding
because he's
that,
unplayable.
And because adding that, that's why I think the Pelicans would be like, give us your first next year instead of that second, which I'd be okay with giving up next year's first. But if I can get that off the book and open up more room with Lonzo Ball.
Trading for I don't know. Lonzo's too good for that. You're not trading for Zaire Smith here. You're trading for Lonzo Ball, former second-round pick 2 years ago. You can't just give up Bobby Portis, who I think is going to be a free agent soon. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. You're not going to give up Chris Dunn, who isn't a top 20 point guard at all.
That's why I feel like in order to do this...
I understand the first-round pick.
No,
still not enough.
It has nothing to do with that. The Bulls, in order to make this work, need to be... they can't go to the Lakers and go, hey, this is what I want. They can't go to the Pelicans after an Anthony Davis deal and go, hey, this is what we want. They have to shoehorn themselves into a three-team deal.
And I understand that
because of what the Lakers can
But the Pelicans can get better value for Lonzo Ball outside of the Bulls. They don't need the Bulls. They need a third team. And the Bulls need to give up more to get Lonzo Ball. Because if you were just saying, the trade for the Lakers, because the Lakers aren't getting anyone from the Bulls aren't getting anyone from the Lakers, right?
No, the Bulls are getting KCP and Lonzo from the Lakers. Because they're getting KCP.
Okay, how much is each one worth? Each one's worth $12 million, right?
He is. Let me pull it up again because I just
do the trade and take off each one and KCP. It still works. It should.
No, the Lakers would have to give up $3.9 million.
Okay.
Still.
Well, and just use Lance because that KCP thing's too valuable to the $12 million.
Well, and I like what you're saying because I came up with the one immediately when the Anthony Davis stuff went down. The Pelicans and Lakers could just include the Magic at Lonzo, and they could give Vooch to the Pelicans. And the Pelicans could be like, oh, Vooch is way more valuable to us than what the Bulls would give up.
But how is Vucevic valuable to the Pelicans at all? He's an expiring contract.
It gives them flexibility, either cap room to just get off the books or, hey, let's rework your contract. What would you want to re-sign with us? Not at a max deal.
I just think that it's going to end up in some way. It's going to be too much to get Lonzo Ball. Dave, do you have a free agent that you came up with that you think could fit with the Bulls?
Fit with the Bulls. Fit with the timeline.
Because I have one.
My default answer always goes back to the same kind of three guys. And it's Klay Thompson, which is a long shot. And that's just me being a jerk and being like, yeah, we got Zach LaVine. I also want Klay Thompson. Tobias Harris, because he's super underrated and I love him. And the third one is actually reasonable, I guess. But depending on where our draft pick lands, I think Kelly Oubre is someone who we could probably just fuck with because the Suns have a bunch of wings already. And I don't expect them to put out a strong offer on him. Yeah. I think they'll toss him some money just to see if he's interested in sticking around for depth. But I think he would be looking for a team where he could make it on, and I like his game. He's got some IQ issues at times during games where he decides to just, freak out.
When you were talking, I was thinking bigger, though.
Yeah.
I was thinking DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh, I mean, you could throw it on that. I don't think Boogie wants a player.
But what I think he does want is a max deal. And you might be one of the only teams offering a max deal.
Without Zion? Now, I ask without Zion because let's say we do get Zion. That means we have Wendell, Markkanen, Zion, and Boogie in our front court.
Well, I think Wendell would probably be better off the bench just for his development.
Yeah,
could play Zion
1,000,000,000%.
Okay. Right. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I think if you have DeMarcus Cousins,
because that's a lot of big bodies.
Who's going to stop it? I mean, it's not like they're slow. Markkanen's fairly athletic. I mean, he's probably the least athletic of the three. Boogie's still getting his legs back under him, and if he gets his legs back under him, we know what he can be. And then Zion has all the defensive hustle in the world. He's still quick. He's a big body, but I mean, no one's going to stop that freight train, and no one's going to be able to dunk on him because he'll just, hip check him. So I think that if they have this much cap space, you got to play with it a little bit more than just Kelly Oubre, in my opinion.
I said Tobias Harris.
Toby would be interesting, but again,
that's the one I like his fit. I think.
Would you then move Markkanen to the 5? Or would you play Toby at the 3?
I would probably try rocking Toby at the 3.
Okay, because I like him more at the 4.
I know, but he and Gallo have been playing together, and I'm like, I could see him play at the 3, and then Obviously, Markkanen's going to get hurt, so he'll be there. He'll be ready.
All right.
Now we draft Ja.
So what we come to is that the Bulls should not trade for Lonzo Ball because they'll either not have enough value or it'll be too much value.
You
Correct?
have to give up too much to get him, and in that value for the upgrade level from Chris Dunn is not worth it in my mind.
And Ricky, I know you want him, but I don't think you. I don't think that. Yes, you can make it work on Trade Machine, but I don't think it's going to feasibly work.
For the right price, I'd be happy to, but I don't want to force it in there. The last name, just to answer the question, because I never answered your question, would be an interesting one, is Bogdanovich. If the Bulls were able to, because he's an unrestricted free agent, if the Bulls were like, hey, let's, Bojan Bogdanovich from the Pacers,
Okay.
If they were able to get, because I'm looking at the threes, and it's like Kawhi's not coming here, Durant's not coming here. Chris Mid could be interesting if we can pull him away, but he's got a player op, and he'll probably stay in Milwaukee.
No, he's actually going to be available.
You think
I don't
so?
likely
He's probably going to decline.
Harrison, though, won't.
he
He's going to
paid.
take his money. And then you've got Bojan, who's unrestricted.
The only thing that I could see with Harrison Barnes is if that he can get like a $20 million per year for longer.
I heard they're
to just re-up
potentially
it.
shopping him.
Just give him the Jabari contract.
I think that they should be smart to shop him, but I'm just saying, like, if the only way I could see him declining that player option is just to try to get more security at a lesser rate, because next year I don't think anyone's gonna want to pay him.
We can give you a $20 million contract for 2 years with a club option.
That's not.
We're
that's
really
the
good
opposite
on
of what he
those.
said.
I know.
Max
anyways.
money, Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or Chicago.
that's probably the only free agent you're gonna get is D Rose on a 4-year, $156 million contract. Anyways, that's going to do it for it. It's no Lonzo Ball, Chris Dunn's getting traded, and D Rose on a max. That's what's going to happen in Chicago, and Jim Boylan's still going to be your coach.